Our challenge yesterday was to talk about, with the panel and with the participants, about the role of knowledge, translation, mobilization, Kstar, in the role of government. So we use the word with to recognize that it wasn't just one way, but this exchange of knowledge with, back and forth between knowledge providers and knowledge from the academic and the practicing community with policymakers and government. So that was really the role of the panel. So how we set it up yesterday, we used the world of water. That's my background with the Canadian Water Network, but with recognizing that people in the room were coming from a vast array of sectors, but recognizing that the world of water making was a good analog for many in health, in the civil society sector, in education. So we use that as a premise, but just really as a springboard to talk about those kinds of issues. So what we did was set it up and had a discussion of two case studies. One with Frédéric Martini from ONIMA, which is a water agency in France, talking about a case study and looking at setting up a interface to support the European Water Framework Directive. So she working with a government agency, and then Dominique Mazmavi from University of Western Cape in South Africa, and is on WaterNet in South Africa and looking at creating capacity building. And then had Dr. Peter Morrow from Germany, who's an international consultant, reflecting on it, and then really engaged the group looking at how that system worked. And I think maybe one of the main observations that came from one of the tables, who basically took issue with the way that the questions were set up, which really gave rise to the main discussions in the room, which was it wasn't really helpful to look at the idea of Kstar as being a brokering function between the two worlds, that it really was more of a facilitation role. In fact, we struggled with what the right words were to facilitate the exchange of information and knowledge and ideas among those communities, and it was really the role of this knowledge community to kind of envelop and broker the whole role. So they were quickly up to the board and drawing a better idea of this as being a circle around these communities as opposed to something in between. So it quickly got us away from talking about, was the role of the knowledge broker something that was a barrier or a facilitator or a step between the two, as really more of a system and creating a management tool around it, not a tool, but sorry, an environment around it that facilitated those things working better together. And that was really the theme of our session, was how can you do that better? How can you make these things function? What are the structures and the tools that allow that to happen? And I think that carried through the sessions you heard today, that we heard at the conference, that people were talking about how do we actually change that system so that happened, that activity happens more effectively, and learning from each other. So I think that was probably the largest carry-on or aha, is how does that activity really envelop the entire process, and what are the skill sets that are needed to make that happen.